Hi, this is my TOK essay breakdown series for May 2023. In these videos I'll be unpacking the key terms and ideas in the title, as well as looking at the question from the perspective of two areas of knowledge. For a more detailed analysis, examples and ideas on how to approach this title using different AOKs and other TOK concepts, please check out my May 2023 essay guides, link in the description. Okay, so in this video we'll be looking at Title 3, which is does it matter if our acquisition of knowledge happens in bubbles, where some information and voices are excluded? Let's start with our key terms. So first of all, I've chosen bubbles, of course, which I've defined here as isolated knowledge networks based on a particular set of ideas and perspectives. So pretty much the same as the TOK concept of communities of knowers. For the second term, I have chosen information and voices, which I've reworded as knowledge or viewpoints related to a certain topic. And finally, I've also put excluded, so when something is purposely disregarded or left out. So for instance, when knowledge is left out of academic discourse or a particular educational curriculum. Some key points you should consider if you're doing this question. First of all, bear in mind that this question deals specifically with knowledge acquisition, not knowledge production. Okay, so for example, if you're talking about research in a given AOK, your focus needs to be on how this knowledge is processed and understood rather than how it's created. Secondly, think about the negative connotations that terms such as filter bubble and echo chamber have, and moreover, what are some of the potential real-world consequences of acquiring knowledge in these types of environments. Also, consider types of knowledge which could be more universal in nature. If such types of knowledge do exist, would this render the whole concept of bubbles irrelevant? Okay, moving on to our AOKs. The first one I have chosen here are the human sciences. At the beginning of each AOK section, you should contextualize the term bubbles in accordance with the AOK. So for example, here I'm viewing them in terms of the various themes which the human sciences typically touch on. So for example, different cultural bubbles, racial bubbles, gender bubbles, the list goes on. Okay. For the claim, I've said that yes, it does matter if we acquire our knowledge in these types of bubbles, because it could cut off knowers from vital knowledge about human values and behaviour, and even lead to distorted views of those who are outside our own bubbles. For example, in online echo chambers, which I briefly mentioned earlier. For the counterclaim, we could push back against this and say, well, actually, no, this isn't necessarily the case, because there are certain universal human behaviors and experiences. For example, the socio-emotional bond between an infant and their primary caregiver. These kinds of experiences and knowledge about these experiences can be said to transcend any kind of bubble or group. To finish this section off with a mini conclusion, we might say that whilst bubbles generally do limit knowledge acquisition in the human sciences, there are certain types of knowledge which are present across all communities of knowers. For the second AOK, I've chosen mathematics. Once again, we'll contextualize bubbles. So for this AOK, I'm defining bubbles in terms of different education systems. We'll start by saying no, it doesn't really matter if we acquire mathematical knowledge in such bubbles, because this type of knowledge is arguably universal in nature. and this has kind of exemplified how different cultures around the world share the same systems with regards to counting, sorting, and deciphering. We might push back against this by saying that yes, it can actually matter if we learn mathematics in bubbles, because if we do so in an overly rigid manner, this can impact our creative problem solving skills. For example, if we only learn one method for solving a particular type of problem. Bringing these ideas together in a mini conclusion, we might say that overall it doesn't really matter that we acquire mathematical knowledge in bubbles, but the bubbles in question, rather, need to use logical systems. For essay guides and personal feedback, feel free to check out my website, tokessayhelp.com. Many thanks for watching.